All right, I'm finally making the video about the major and it finishing. I took a day to just kind of collect my thoughts, kind of summarize it into a concise way, so then the video is less scrambly, less all over the place because I'm typically a bit of a rambler, a bit of a yapper. I like to talk a lot and sometimes my points aren't always very coherent. So this time I decided to try and like write it down a bit and get it memorized before I do this. Um, so let's just get into it instantly. Uh, if you know how we do these, we do the from the last place teams to the first place teams. So we're gonna start with because we're only talking about playoffs. We're gonna start with 9Z. Um, and I just want to say 9Z good underdog run, right? I think for the most part, I doubted them, and many people even doubted them. I didn't have a lot of faith in 9Z because of their stake ranked episode 2 results. That result was really damning, especially based off the eye test, how they were calling, how they were playing. It looked disconnected and didn't seem to mesh. But at this tournament, it seemed like it all came together to make a good run and to upset some really good opposition like Vitality, who they beat, Spirit, they were extremely close to beat and basically should have won, and Furia, who they played rather close in the playoffs, but just weren't able to get it over the line. Furia had more um, better players, and on top of that, just like more experience, right? Even though they were a bit shaky. But I want to highlight somebody, Luchov. I think Luchov is a real talent for this team. I have a lot of faith going forward that this guy is going to be a really good player for this squad if they manage to hold on to him, which I imagine they will. Um, he's a great South American rifler, and he's a monster on T side. This guy takes a lot of openers, and even on CT side, he's amazing, right? So Luchov, great tournament from him, and he's honestly been delivering numbers for a while on this team. Um, I think Max actually had some really good ideas. I didn't mention Max, and I did question their calling. I said their calling isn't sustainable. It kind of relies on individuals a bit. But I think Max had better ideas than I gave credit, especially on Mirage. Mirage, I saw them actually do they have a lot of different variations with the strats they throw, right? They might throw the same utility each round, but then they like how they do the small little variations of what they do with that utility. I think is unique and kind of interesting. Like their opener plays, I think are rather good and better than I even gave credit. DGT made another what I'm call it another major run after Austin. Right, last major run he had was in Austin, where they made semifinals. This time they made quarters. But honestly, I think 9Z look far more convincing than Pain did look in Austin. I think Pain kind of got lucky that Furia choked, which this Furia did not choke. Right, Yuri and Yukindar played rather well. So I think this run is a lot more legit than Pain making semis, right? Because Pain also did kind of have the easy side of the bracket. Not to mention Furia were kind of known for choking quarterfinals up until recently, right? This is the one quarterfinals match they haven't choked in their last three. But I just want to point out like a problem I have with this roster. It's mostly Marin. I think Marin has been bad for quite a while, and this stat does not change even if you go to if you take this off and you go to his just stats for 2026. They're still not good. He is a really rough opper. Even on CT side, I still don't think he's that good. With the op on T side, he's just dreadful. I think the easiest upgrade for this guy is Try from Passion UA or Imperial nowadays, because I'm pretty sure it got recalled back to Imperial because of a financial discussion happening with the rosters. I think Marin is just very easy to replace, and if you get Try, this roster becomes like a top 10 level caliber team. Because I do think the calling is better than I gave credit. Maybe Stank Ranks was just an awful tournament from them that they just didn't deliver anywhere near what I think they have the potential to, and that really like turned me off from them. But maybe maybe with plus Try, they will be a consistent top 10 team. So I think Marin needs to be removed. But overall, I'm very happy with 9Z's run. I think they can be proud of what they did. I'm still not completely sold on this roster. I still think this roster has some problems in the calling and sometimes the sustainability. Sustainability, I think, is a massive thing that just sustainability and consistency with the roster, right? Like, how sustainable is Luchov being able to get consistent, like, multi kill openers going to be for this roster, or just being the player he is, right? Like, is he always going to be that level? If he's always that level, then sure, right? But I'm just not completely sold on this roster right now. Um, Still think they have some problems. Marin is obviously one of them, but I just need to see more consistency. If they do it at the next tournaments, they're super good, super consistent, then I'm willing to buy into this team. I'm willing to believe. But until I see it next season, I'm not going to buy it, right? I'm holding off my expectations. I'm tempering my expectations. But going to our next team, it would be Betboom. I think Betboom played a rather good. I mean, they played honestly an amazing major. Considering they had two stand-ins, this is an amazing result for them. Boomish does it again, right? With another scuffed roster. The fact that they are able to make it from stage one all the way to quarterfinals is an amazing feat because the exhaustion from that is wild, right? FaZe did it in the previous major, Budapest, where they made stage one all the way to the finals. But BetBoom makes it to all the stage one all the way to the quarters, and I think honestly, considering they have a stand-in, I think it's even more impressive than the phase one to a certain extent. Um, Even though like FaZe arguably beat better teams. They faced some very tough opponents at this tournament, right? They beat Falcons. I think beating Falcons is a super serious win. Super big feather in your cap for beating them. Vitality was less close, but they beat them at IEM Atlanta previously. I think partially because they didn't have Siren. There's less structure. I think that can sometimes cause problems when you're playing with effectively two stand-ins, because even though Diladez is a starter, he was basically brought in to replace Siren, right? And Famas was brought in to replace Diladez. So the roles were a bit scuffed. And then Spirit Stage 2, they faced. Wasn't particularly close, but in my opinion, they played some good gun rounds against them. I saw some good things. Um, I want to highlight MagnoJazz. I think MagnoJazz was a player I was super hyped for when I first saw him on BetBoom at Shanghai. I saw him at Shanghai, and I thought he was good. I thought he had potential. And then I saw him at Austin, and like developed during like his period from Shanghai to Austin, and I was like really sold on him. And then he kind of tapered back down. But this year he's been incredible in tier two. He's been their best player, their standout player by far. Right? He's another Spirit Academy prospect that I'm pretty sure was uh, touted to be like the next Donk, or I don't know if he played on the same team as Donk. I'm not exactly sure, but he has fully blossomed. I think now. I think he's taken the step up to be a very legit tier one, like a potential tier one player. Um, People were saying MagnoJet's a spirit. I don't see how it works role wise. Like the problem is MagnoJet is too aggressive to play Zontic spots or Tanira spots. Um, I just don't think you can. I just don't think you can fit it in the rules. But honestly, um, I think he should go to a better team or stay on this team if they're going to upgrade the roster, right? I also want to shout out Boomich. I think Boomich called and played an exceptional tournament. I think he did it again with another scuffed roster, right? The last time he did it with a scuffed roster was at Copenhagen with no opper. He was having to share the op duties, I think, with Electronic and a few other guys, which was wild. That roster made a quarterfinals with that. I think Boomich has officially sold me on the idea that he could go to a tier one Russian CIS team, right? Russian speaking team. Because I do think he called the best tournament I've ever seen him call in quite a while. I think the last one was like probably Copenhagen. Um, but this tournament, he really did sell me on his calling. Flamis, I don't have his statistics up right now, but I want to give a shout out to Flamis. In stage one, stage two, he was their, I think, statistically their best player. It might have been MagnoJazz, but I think it was Flamis. Was statistically their best player. He was unbelievable. He was having so much impact on his lurks and playing like aggro lurk style, playing roles he's not even familiar with, right? And I think I'm just gonna say it, Flamus's time in VP doesn't count. That VP stint completely stunted his career growth because of they just used him wrong. They used him as like a basic bitch support player, right? And he's not that. He's very clearly a star. He wants aggression. He wants to be able to play make. And I think Boomich allowed for that chaotic style that Flamis likes to play. And they used him properly, right, in the team. Diladez is another person I want to shout out because I think Diladez actually did better than I expected considering the rule changes. He took up a lot of hard anchor duties from Siren and was actually performing in them. Mechanically looked super crisp at this tournament, right? I think he aim-wise has like excellent aim, right? He's super sharp aim-wise. So I think he played well. And then I think Betboom going forward, if they want to sign Flamis and they can upgrade the op, I think this team can be a top 10 team next season. Klim is available on the market. He's Russian, speaks Russian. Could pick him up. I think he's better than Art Frost or Zorte. Potential wise and currently, I think he's better than both, even though they have more experience the other two. So I think those are options that they could do, and honestly, it would improve them. In my opinion, I would love to see that change because I think Betboom could be a very scary team with that. And then I don't know what you would do with Dilladez Siren. You could probably swap either or. You could keep Dilladez or you could pick up Siren. Siren is weird because he's not bad. He's just not very good. Um, he's like fine for what he does, right? And I think that's the best way to explain Siren. Um, but yeah, moving on to the next team. The next team is G2, right? I accidentally closed my tab, so I'm going to have to redo it. Hold on. They're extremely close. Both times. Last time they lost to Mongols, and the other time they lost to Falcons. Mongols in Austin, Falcons in Budapest. So this time they finally make it, which I imagine is going to feel like a sigh of relief for Hunter and the boys. But I also want to say they faced like basically no tough opposition if we really want to be critical, right? If we look through the matches who they faced, G2 faced off against Falcons. They lost. They played them semi-close, but again, I think Karrigan's style is always going to have that in groups. They first off against Foot, who were a bit crumbly this tournament. I think Jugas was their only really outstanding player and their only consistent player. They faced off against Aurora. They lost it very convincingly. I think Wakati on masterclass all over them. And then Legacy, rough tournament from them. Nissim was the lowest rated player, below Karrigan even. He was that bad at this tournament. And then they faced off against Navi, who were crumbling, right? Navi and Spirit in the quarters were the only tough opposition they actually faced at this major for the most part. I think this team, some people are going to look at it like, oh, it's quarterfinals, but it's like they actually faced nobody. They basically faced like nobody actually good or worth talking about. So again, it the result looks better than it actually is. I want to give a huge shout out though to Heavy God. I think Heavy God was the best tournament I've seen him play, even better than London. I think this was the best tournament I've ever seen Heavy God play. I think Heavy God is a top 10 player after this. The fact that he is a hard anchor, hard support player, right? He gets so little resources and he delivers far more impact than I've ever seen out of a hard anchor, hard support player. Like absurd. He entries, he clutches, he's amazing, right? Like he's like one of the best players in the world. He's like a top 10 player, like definitively for me. Like when I watch him, I'm actually amazed at some of the things he does. And in my opinion, he deserves a better team. He was their only positive player, I'm pretty sure, at this major. I can even pull up the stats right now, which I should have done before if I want to make this point, but it's fine. But I'm pretty sure he was their only positive player across the entire tournament. He dropped a 1.26. Hard anchor positions, by the way. He dropped a 1.26. Everybody else was negative or 1.0 from some bias. That's literally it. So, yeah, in my opinion, Heavy God deserves better. This guy, if he went to any other team, they would instantly create an era. Goes to Spirit, creates an era there. Like, he's so good. He's just too good for this team. Mattis, I still think has potential. I know he looks rough, and it's because he's playing hard anchor, he's playing like not hard anchor. He's playing some anchor spots. He's playing a lot of anchor spots. He's playing like B apps on Mirage, which is stupid, and I'm still mad about it. But he's like hard entry on T side. I've compared him to the modern day config like multiple times, and he is the modern day config, right? Super confident, super aggressive player, mechanically so like brilliant, right? He's amazing mechanically, and he kind of showed it in the last map they played against Spirit. In this Mirage, he was their best player. So I think Mattis still has more potential to grow. When I watched him on Fnatic, I was instantly sold on this guy. Especially when he played with Blame F. I think Mattis and Heavy God are a decent core to build up. I want to mention Nerds. Nerds has died, right? The old Nerds died in Heroic when they had the Tessus, Shush, Kixen, Dexter roster. That's when Nerds died. He was never the same after that. As soon as he went to Liquid, never looked the same, right? He's still underwhelming. He's still not delivering the moment. He has glimpses, but he's not. I don't think he's ever coming back. I'm kind of sold off Nerds, sadly. And it's sad because I actually do like Nerds. I like Nerds a lot. I thought he was so good in Heroic, but he just hasn't delivered the numbers I need him to, especially if Mattis is going first. Some bias is fine. I think some bias is, considering the intangibles he does offer this squad, I actually don't blame Sampaius for delivering the numbers he does. He has to play a very supportive style of upping and doesn't get to dictate a lot of action, especially since Hunter requires a lot of resources. So I think Sampaius is okay. Would I want Klim? Yes. But am I fine with Sampaius staying? Yeah, I think he played okay at this tournament. And then Hunter, in my opinion, has to go. Hunter, the biggest problem with him is he's too selfish for the resources he takes, and he doesn't call a good enough game. And if you're not delivering insane numbers or you're not calling a good enough game, shouldn't be on the roster, right? IGLs to pick up. Kixon is the easiest one. He's worked with Saw in the past. He's played with Nerds in the past, right? Even though I think Nerds is a problem point, maybe he gets an uptick with Kixon. Who knows? Um, and on top of that, I think Kixon frags well. He's not as selfish as Hunter. Um, and I think he plays the more like late round style of IGLing, the more like selfish style of IGLing better than better than Hunter because he at least calls a good game. Gizme's another one, but Gizme's rumored to 100 Thieves, so is that actually going to happen? I really rate Gizme. I think Gizme is so good, and I think he's cheap. So, but regardless, I think changes need to be made for G2 in the offseason. I'm done with this squad. They have no more time, in my opinion. Their time was they had until Budapest, right? We gave them more time because we're like, they had 6 months. Hunter's new IGL. It's now been a year. Hunter, in my opinion, has no more time. Like changes need to be made. Like Niko and Mondesi just won the major. Like if you could have kept those guys, you should have kept them. So I'm done with G2. They have no more time. Vitality, back-to-back quarterfinal finishes, which some people are going to say is disappointing. They lost to Falcons, though, the eventual champions. So, in my opinion, it's less bad. Apex, during the losing moments, looked really rough. Like, he looked actually destroyed because I think he really wanted to establish himself as the best team of all time. He really wanted the GOAT title the GOAT team title. He was really fighting for it, and I think that's always something that makes me like want to cheer for Apex because this guy works so hard and he actually cares so much about the legacy of the game that it's hard to ever like hate the guy, right? He's a bit of a joker, he's a bit of a trash talker, but honestly, he's like such a good personality to have in this scene. I think he really means it. On top of that, he's becoming a father, which congrats to him, right? But um, Zaiwu was silent in both of the maps they lost. And if you don't believe me, we can go on the match page. I should have done this before, whatever. But he was silent in both the maps they lost. On Inferno, he farmed 1.67, right? But Dust 2, silence. Anubis, silent. And again, some people are going to be like, well, like the KD and all this stuff, and like, yeah, it's not bad, but for Zywoo's standards, it's pretty bad, right? Like for Zywoo's standards, it's not good enough, right? When you're the best player in the world, or supposed to be the best player in the world, you can't deliver those numbers, right? And that's why we're going to be a bit critical of him. I understand you can't play your best all the time, but it still has to come down on somebody, especially in the important matches. Rob's on CT side wasn't having enough impact in his anchor spots, especially in this series. I feel like in this series in general, Rops was a little rough. I feel like on T side he was completely fine. On Anubis he was good. CT side still rough, couldn't find impact. But on T side he was amazing in the late round. In the lurks, Inferno wasn't able to deliver anything on the CTs. Well, the numbers look better than what they are, right? And Inferno is their good map. I feel like I noticed more flaws with Rops' anchoring on Inferno than the stats actually show, but maybe that's just a standard I'd hold him to. And then on Dust 2, he just, again, he plays B anchor is not a fun role. So the typical output we get from Rops is just not there in his CT spots at this tournament, in my opinion, especially in the Falcons Furia match. I don't think that's Rops' fault necessarily, but because the entire team struggled, if I'm being honest. So I'm not going to completely blame Rops. Mezzi, super rough tournament. He had a 0.9 across the entire tournament. On T side, he was playing like, if you know what Mezzi does, he plays a lot of like, he's like the second guy in or first guy in with Flamesy. when they go to execute a bomb site. That's why his T side stats look super rough. He is supposed to trade Flamesy a lot, but and he usually does, but wasn't having enough impact in the CT side positions he was had, especially on Dust 2. I don't think he was good on Dust 2 at this tournament. We can actually check very quickly. Actually, better on CT side than I thought, but T side really rough, right? But just based off the eye test, he wasn't delivering the numbers he usually does. I understand he's the hard support of the team, basically. Gets like some of the worst positions, but it does need to be mentioned, right, when your support player is really struggling, because in my opinion, the two supporting pieces were struggling, and that the other supporting piece is Flamesy. Flamesy has fallen off since the start of the year, which was expected. Everybody did expect it, right? You see the numbers he was dropping here. These are like donk level numbers. Like these are absurd numbers, especially at Blast Open Rotterdam, where he, in my opinion, should have won MVP. He was robbed. Um, but since IEM Atlanta and then IEM Cologne, he's fallen off a bit, which was to be expected. I don't think anyone, I don't think he was ever going to be the second best player of this year, which people thought he was going to be, but I don't think he was ever going to be that. A lot of people are going to look at this tournament and be like, this is a disappointing result, losing in quarters, losing the Falcons, right? But they shouldn't be making changes. This roster is still very good, still has a lot of potential. Still, in my opinion, the greatest team of all time, despite not having the three majors in the row, because there's a thing, it's called eye test. You know, when you watch the game, what is the team doing? And right, when I consider the individual players and the way they've basically managed to make the game almost like perfect. Like I've never seen a team look this well structured, right? Like other than Prime Astralis, right? But I think this team has something that Prime Astralis didn't have, and that's a superstar. They have Zywoo. And Zywoo is a true superstar. Device was a amazing system player. He was amazing at it, and he was borderline a superstar, but he wasn't, right? When you really consider it, the eye test just tells you he's not. Um, So in my opinion, they're still the greatest team of all time, despite not having three majors in a row. That's not going to change just because of this result. So yeah, don't make changes and continue on. Talking about Aurora, Aurora finished in the semifinals. They lose to Furia. I feel like this result was kind of obvious. I felt this result coming once they won the quarters, which kind of sucks. I think this is a decent run from them. This is technically Turkish CS's last dance, right? Because the roster rumors that are on the horizon, a lot of roster rumors like Moladoy or Alexi B going to Aurora have been rumored for a while, so who knows? I think this is a decent result. Their last decent result on a major was Copenhagen. Budapest, I think they went out in stage 2. In Austin, they went 1-3 in stage 3. So those tournaments were disappointing considering they always made playoffs during those seasons. Um, So yeah, I want to shout out Wicadia. This guy really is the future of Turkish CS. This guy is so good. He could go to international rosters if he really wants to, which I imagine they will in Aurora. They're going to build an international roster because I think this Aurora has reached its like limit, in my opinion, of what they can realistically do with the Turkish roster. Even though I think they have great riflers, great pieces, I think with the calling, it's just not good enough. Even though I think Modger has actually improved his calling. I want to mention Modger and his calling because I think he actually has improved his calling in the last few months, which is good, right? I feel like he's mid-rounding more, he's using more lurks, he's deathballing less, and these things I'm glad to see Modger do, but I don't know, I don't think he's going to have a chance to really improve upon it next season because I don't think he's going to be in Aurora. Um, I think Zontaras again went missing. This is a bit of a sad case because in the Bet Boom series in quarterfinals, he was amazing, right? Completely smashed. He had that one flick moment on T Red where he's like looking like for the cross, right? Where they normally throw the cross smoke to get to T Red, and then he just flicks to the guy, one bullets him, right? It was an amazing clip. And then, of course, when they first Furia, he is their lowest rated player. On T side, he was dreadful, 3 and 14. And usually he's their T side engine. So when he's not firing, this team is going to be very rough. This team is not going to stand a chance against like Furia, right? When their riflers are firing, especially Yuri, right? Because I think Yuri had a good tournament. We're going to talk about him later. Um, I want to shout out Woxic. I feel like Woxic gets underrated a lot because the stats don't look necessarily super pleasing. Because I think rating 3.0 just nerfs oppers extremely hard. And I think Woxic does far more than people give him credit. I think the eye test on CT side just checks out. On T side, he doesn't rifle a lot, and he's not bad at it, but he's not good on it. Like I would want him on an op on T side because I think he knows how to play the lines properly. He knows how to throw supportive util. He's good in the clutch with it. So I think Woxic's a bit underrated, despite the stats not somewhat hurting him. And I want to shout out also Soulfly. I don't have his stats up, but I just want to talk about Soulfly as a player because I think Soulfly has been one of the best pickups of the offseason. I was a bit skeptical on it because I watched him in Firefox and I wasn't completely sold on him transitioning from hard opener, hard like very clearly the star rifler to anchor support player, which I was like, I don't think it's going to work. I think you're like scapegoating Joda. I think the problem is calling. But honestly, I think he's one of the most overqualified role players this season. I think he's one of the best pickups of the offseason. So I'm happy to see Soulfly do well because I liked him on Fireflash. I thought he was super good there. Um, so yeah, and on top of that, the rumors of Moldoy LXCB might be true, right? Sponge made those announced those roster rumors like I don't know 3-4 months ago, and everybody called him crazy, and everybody said he was like you're just listening to like schizos online, right? But honestly, at this point, it does look that way. If you saw how Woxic reacted after losing, he was crying, right? It really hurt him to lose this way because I think he knows this is probably their last tournament before changes are happening. I doubt the Alexi B rumor because why would Alexi leave or why would Blade kick him? You were the second best team for most of the year, and if you kick him because you did bad at the major, that's just pointless because realistically, the biggest problem, it's Emma, by the way. You just kick him, sign Frozen, sign Twist, sign just a decent rifler, Senzu even, and you will just instantly improve. You will instantly become a competitive team, right? You're already a competitive team. You don't have to change the IGL. So yeah. But Kixing could go to Aurora. I wouldn't mind that. And then Woxic to FaZe. Those rumors came out a while ago that Woxic was interested in FaZe. I don't think he's going to join FaZe now because Karrigan's not there, but maybe he will. Who knows? He might end up there. I think Woxic's good, and I think he's definitely an upgrade over Brokey, so we might see him there. Moving on to Spirit. I think this result is okay. Losing to the eventual champions and Falcons, they almost lost to G2. This series was really close, much closer than I expected. I think it was much closer for a few reasons, and we're going to get into those. But I think this is an okay result considering no coach. I think no coach does a lot of things to teams, especially since you're not able to make the mid-round adaptations. It's really up to the IGL and the players to call that out, which I think is a little hard, especially considering this is Magic's first season as an IGL. And I'm not going to lie, this was a success. I think he called a great tournament. I think he did. I think as a caller, he has actually done super well, right? I'm very impressed by some of the calling I saw at this tournament in the playoffs. Um, so I think Magic's, like, honestly, hats off to Magic's. I think he played well. I think he called well. So yeah, hats off to him for his first season being a success because I was really doubtful. I'm not gonna lie, I doubted this move for quite a while, and I thought, why would you do this? Like you're making a huge risk when you could have just kept Chopper and brought in Zontix, right? And yeah, Zontix, has been struggling a bit stats wise. I think he's been better eye test wise than people give credit, but I don't know why they did it, but honestly, it's been well. I think Shiro, another huge shout out to Shiro. I think Shiro of Rio Major came back, right? That major, he was incredible. If you did not watch that major, he played insane at that major. He was the most clutch he's been all season. I think he was their best player. This entire like from stage 3 going into playoffs, he was their best player in my opinion, even better than Donk. I think some people are going to be like, well, Donk statistically did better, but I think the eye test told me Shiro was better than Donk from stage 3 to stage 3 to playoffs, right? Where Donk was amazing in stage 2, like godlike in stage 2, and then but I think Shiro was more consistent. Um, I thought I had his match history, but we can do this, right? Green across the board. If you watch the games, he was super clutch, especially in this. I think it's on this dust where he hits like a no scope and then swaps into a Tech 9 to win like a 1v2 clutch on dust 2 a bomb site, right? It was incredible. So yeah, huge shout out to Shiro. I think he played amazing. He actually didn't choke. Donk was more quiet this playoffs, right? This is the most quiet I've seen Donk in a major playoffs ever, right? And he hasn't had a super long career, but even comparing it to Copenhagen, his first major, he was better there. Um, he was quiet and then missing is the way I've described it. I think the stats look super favorable. However, the eye test told me he struggled, especially on this overpass. On this overpass, he wasn't able to get going. They did just pop B a lot of the time, even though Shiro was doing well. So, and then in this Falcons game, he was just missing, right? He was just missing, and he wasn't able to get going. Even on T side, he was doing well, but CT side, I felt like he kept getting run over, especially on this Dust 2. I think Dust 2, he really, really struggled, which is rare. It's rare to see um, a player like Donk ever actually go missing, especially since he's never done it before in a major playoffs, and now he does it here. So, kind of sucks. I think Zontix does more than the eye test suggests. I think his stats are not good. I don't have them pulled up. His stats are not good, but I think a lot of people dog on Zontix and are like, look at this guy. He's a bum. He can't aim, you know. But I think the eye test has told me he's actually doing a lot for this team. I think he's the secondary caller for this team a lot of the time. I think he chips in with a lot of the ideas. Uh, eye test wise, he's going for more plays. He's going for more aggressive plays. He's pushing more smokes. He's picking up the AK more. That's actually something I was surprised. On CT side, he picks up the AK more. He actually aims for the head more because he's picking up the AK more. So I think there's a lot of good things about Zonzix that a lot of people seem to be dogging on because they're like, look at his KPR, look at his stats and all this. On top of that, he's hard entering sometimes. He's hard entering. He's playing like the shush roll sometimes where he's just sacking himself to go first, right? So I think Zontix does more than the eye test suggests. And I want to also mention Tanir. Some people were saying this guy fluked Rio and Astana, right? Which I think are so stupid. Those comments make me lose my mind because it's like people just don't have an eye test and they're talking like this. It's like, guys, when you watch him, you can clearly see he's a skilled player. He's just very hit or miss. And the stats really show it, right? In the games he was good, he was really fucking good, right? This Mirage, super impactful, right? Dust 2, he basically won this Mirage for them. Um, in the Aurora game, he was great, right? But you also see he has really rough games like this, right? Anubis has never been a map he's been good at. In this 9Z series, he really struggled, right? Especially on Overpass. Overpass is also a map he's never been really that good at. Um, and then G2, he was a bit rough. In my opinion, on this Mirage, he had far more impact than the stats show. He caught a lot of lurk timings. So I think Tenier kind of gets dogged on unnecessarily. I understand why. It's because Zway kind of got shit on for not performing, right? But in my opinion, Tenier is better than Zway. I think objectively, eye test tells me that. Watching his demos tells me that. So I still have faith for this roster. I don't think they should change anything going into the next season. They're still figuring things out. This is Magic's first season as an IGL, and with the Sotfik coming in as like a coach or an assistant coach or maybe the coach behind them, and Howie is like the main visionary, I guess, if you want to put it that way. I have a lot of faith for this roster going forward. They might be the third best team or the second best team. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna wait until next season. I think this roster has more potential. Now we're talking about Furia. Furia make it to the finals. Fallen's, last chance to potentially make uh, to win a major, right? To go out winning the major he won back in 2016 in Cologne, right? But I also want to mention that this might be a bit of a fraudulent run. I think this is on par with the Mongols run in Austin. I think if you remember back to that Mongols Austin run, they basically faced no good opposition on their side of the bracket on top of groups. I don't think they faced much, like, very good opposition for the most part. The only good opponent they faced was in the finals, and I think it's a similar case with Furia if you actually look at who they faced, right? So in the first match, they get Bait. That's a bit of a layup because Bait just don't have the individual quality. On top of that, the calling's a bit rough. They then face off against Mouse, who have Brolin instead of JL, who they've been practicing with for most of the uh, rest of the season, right? And then they face off against Bet Boom. Bet Boom, even though they're a nice story and I think better than what people give credit, they're probably exhausted, right? They went from stage 1 to stage 3. So I don't blame, like Furia should be beating Bet Boom, right? I think they have the better players, championship aspirations, right? so they should be beating them. And then in the finals, I also want to mention how all the riflers went missing. I think Fallen is the only one you can't really criticize, and that's just because he plays a lot of the supportive positions. He plays a lot of the anchor positions. He's not really expected to do much. So I think he's kind of, in my opinion, he's blameless. Molodoi was left holding the bag. Molodoi did so well in this finals, but it just didn't really matter. Um, which kind of sucks because Molodoi was known for being a bit of a choker, and when he finally shows up at the major, right, like he shows up and he plays super well, everybody kind of like betrays him or lets him down, right? I want to mention Yuri though. Yuri actually played well. I'm still thinking there might be roster changes on the horizon for Yuri because I think Yuri has been really up or down this season. He was amazing at Rio, and then the other tournaments he was kind of mid at or just bad, like actually a liability. But this tournament he was super good. The playoffs he did incredible. In the group stages he was even playing well. So shout out to Yuri for improving his form, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. In my opinion, Yuri is the one piece I would probably change. Um, but this roster might even be changing in general because Molodoi rumors to Aurora have been circulating for a while. So there's a chance that this roster, this is the last time we see this roster. There is a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen. They might just ride it out for the rest of Fallen's career, but I wouldn't blame the players if they decide, this is the time to cut ties and, go other places because this is probably the best it's going to be, right? In my opinion, for this Furia roster. So it was nice. Uh, and now mentioning finally the finals. I don't even have it open. Falcons. Niko finally wins his major, which honestly feels so good to finally say. Right, Niko finally wins his major. Niko is. I know I don't talk about him a lot on this channel. Niko. It's not because he's not interesting. Niko was actually my favorite player back when I watched CS:GO, back in 2016. Right, Niko was my favorite player because he was a rifler who was like standing, like he was actually competing with like prime oppers, right? He was competing with like people like Zaiwu and Simple and Device, right? And Guardian and these guys. He was good enough and he was so good and he was a potential GOAT candidate for a period of time, right? When he was young. But obviously, like, and then as he continued, he was just like a top 5 player, right? I think he's in that weird case where he's like, he's not in the he's in the GOAT conversation, but he gets eliminated first when you actually like run down the list of names, right? Because in my opinion, there's only like 3 players that are really in that conversation. For CS:GO, CS2, right? I'm not counting 1.6. I don't know enough about the history of that, but in my opinion, he gets eliminated. But he is so much better than the players below him, right? The legendary players. He's so much better than he's clearly a step above the legendary players, but he's not in the GOAT combo, right? So he's in this weird middle ground where he's not, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, right? But he finally rewrites his narrative of being a choker. This was the best major I think he's played, or best major finals he's played, right? Obviously, Boston, he was rough in. Stockholm, he was good in, but he just didn't have a team to really help him. Everybody mentions that fucking Deagle clip. That Deagle clip does not matter. I still do not care. That's not a choke. He still played amazing that tournament and that series. That is all on his team. He had Amanek and Jax, bro. Amanek and Jax. So stupid, but whatever. But it's almost poetic, right? The idea that Karrigan and Niko reunite to like rewrite the sins of Boston, right? The fact that they choked in Boston, both of them choked, to be honest, because Karrigan was a choker then, as well as Niko. They were both bit chokers. Um, and they win it on Inferno. The final map is Inferno, which is just like so poetic. Niko Niko just looked less stressed at this major. He looked like he was having more fun and smiling. And honestly, I'm super happy that Niko wins his major. But I even just want to mention Tessis, right? Tessis is another player who had a potential to win a major back in Rio, right? With Heroic, when Heroic were a super competitive team, like they were a championship caliber team, they just could never get it over the line. They would occasionally win some tournaments, but they would, for the most part, they'd make playoffs, make deep runs, but then lose. Tessis finally gets his major, right? Maybe not finally, but he does get a major after being so close in Rio, where they lost to Jame, right? So I want to mention Tetris because I feel like he doesn't get mentioned in these lists. I think he played amazing this tournament, considering his roles. Right, he's supposed to be like the supportive piece. not even a star really, but I think he played super well this tournament. I don't have his stats open, so we're not going to look. Zonic, 6 majors. Some people are going to be like, oh, that's it. He's definitively the GOAT coach. He's not for me. My GOAT coach is still Blade. It will always be Blade. Blade has done things that are unbelievable, but Zonic is 100% in the conversation, considering the fact that he's done it with 3 different rosters, 3 different superstar oppers, right? Arguably superstar for device. It's not really a superstar. He's kind of a superstar, but he's not. He's kind of in that Niko realm, but he's like above Niko realm because he did more or had more success, right? So yeah, honestly, super impressive for Zonic. I do think Zonic does things in this team, even though I've been super critical of Zonic. I still think Zonic is better than what the casuals actually give him, because if you win 5 majors with 2 different rosters, well, now 6 majors with 3 different rosters, you're clearly doing something. Yes, you are accountable for, like, he's not paycheck stealing necessarily, right? He might have been paycheck stealing for a period, but he is clearly doing something. And I think his call to bring in Karrigan, it's probably his call because I've heard he makes a lot of the roster decisions, or he has a lot of influence on the roster decisions. I think it's a super good call, to bring in Karrigan, because look what it has yielded, right? Look, they were expecting the Singapore major to be their major, but they won it early, right? I want to mention Monacy. Monacy, I think, incredible tournament. He 100% deserves his MVP. 1.25. He was amazing on CT side. zero point 0.9 KPR, 23% multi kill, with almost a 2.0 on the pistol rating is absurd, right? He was taking a fuck ton of openers. This is just on CT side, right? If we go both sides, it's still, the stats are still amazing, right? So yeah, he 100% deserves the MVP. He played like a superstar this tournament, and I just want to, like, he deserves it, and it's finally a winners MVP, right? He's lost how many he lost like 9 grand finals in a row before winning this one, so um, that's good for him. On top of that, like, he gets a winners MVP, which is super nice, right? I'm kind of just rambling at this point, but I still want to keep going. Kiyosake continues to deliver in playoffs. I think that, again, these are just his playoff stats, by the way. If I scroll down, it is based off, see, playoff stats are tagged. These are just his playoff stats. His entry success is or his opening success is actually absurd. Almost 30%, winning 60%. Those are donk-like numbers. T-side monster, right? If you just want to go to the stats, 0.8 KPR, 130 or 86 ADR or 87 ADR basically. 2.57 pistol rating. On both sides is 1.83. Like, that's actually absurd. I keep saying absurd because I'm out of words, but honestly, Kiyosuke, I'm super glad to see Karrigan unlock this player, because I do think Kiyosuke, he does get compared to Donk, and he's not Donk. I think Donk is a better player. He just is, right? There's something special about Donk that I don't think Kiyosuke has. But I think Kiyosuke, when it comes to the raw mechanical elements, like just raw aim, I think he might have better raw aim than Donk. I think Donk has better movement and it has a better intuitive feel about the game. But I think Kiyosuke, just off aim, is actually better than Donk, which some people don't consider. But yeah, and then Karrigan breaks a record of being the lowest statistical player to ever win. I think it's a major or a tournament. I'm not sure. I think it might be tournament, but it could be just a major in general. 0.71. Maybe he even tied his own record. I'm not sure, but he played so bad. But I think this does show that CS is more about strategy than people give credit. Yes, he was fragging awfully, but he was setting up his teammates and like enabling them to frag more. I'm pretty sure B-Trams did a stat on Twitter. Thorin mentioned in one of his videos and even showed it, that all the players actually improved in their KPR to compensate for Karrigan being worse. Like, they performed like 0.20 KPR collectively higher than just having Kixen, right? Because Kixen was like 0.58 KPR, Karrigan is 0.42, and they said they basically get more KPR across the other 4, that it's even better than Kixen, right? Which is super. I think that shows how Karrigan is using his pieces so much better than people can even, think, right? Like, I think Karrigan is, you know, still my opinion, he is the GOAT IGL, right? And it's not because he's won everything. It's not because he's hasn't had flaws. He does have flaws, but he does it with rosters and superstars like no other IGL has ever done, right? Apex has done it only with ZywOo, right? He has had the greatest team of all time, but in my opinion, he's not the GOAT because he hasn't done it with any other roster, really, right? He hasn't had that level of success with any other roster. Sure, with Vitality when they were French, right? He did pretty well. With Magisk and Dupree, in my opinion, that roster actually kind of like didn't do that much until the major, right? Um, because it was a super team on paper, but it just didn't work, right? Until the Paris major, right? So in my opinion, Karrigan is still my GOAT because longevity and the fact that he's done it with multiple different rosters and multiple different players, the fact that he gets more out of his pieces than any other IGL I've ever seen when it comes to superstar players is, you know, that's why he's my GOAT, right? And then just mentioning the final thing is the future is actually looking good for Falcons. I think Falcons will be a super competitive team coming into next season. Do I think Vitality will still be the best team? Yeah, because I haven't seen the fall off quite yet, and I imagine Apex is going to be even more hungry coming into next season. But I imagine Falcons will be a top 3, top 4 team up there with Spirit, Navi, those guys, right? They might be the third best team or the second best team. We'll see. Maybe they challenge Vitality again because after the first season of 2025, that's what they were doing, right? They were consistently challenging Vitality in IEM Melbourne and Blast Rivals. I think it was Blast Rivals. Um, they were constantly challenging them, right? Until the Austin Major, where that kind of fell apart and they got Kiyosuke after the major, right? So yeah, that's my take. That's all I have for the major, right? I'm gonna make a video about some roster rumors that are happening, or not roster, well, some roster rumors, but also some roster changes that are official and are actually occurring. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if you actually enjoyed this major. I enjoyed this major. This major was a lot of fun. Um, it wasn't as fun as Shanghai. Shanghai was my favorite CS2 major by far. I love that fucking major, but this major was good. It was super fun, and I'm glad Niko finally has his major. Niko in the finals even carried. So that choker narrative, I think, needs to die. I think he's been really unlucky throughout his career, and I do think he does have a choking aspect to his gameplay and to how he is. But I think hopefully this is the final stone that this is the final straw, right? That breaks the camel's back in that choking narrative. That choking problem is no more, right? Um, so yeah, thanks for watching.